If you had to eat one cultural food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Burritos.
Japanese.
Mexican.
What is happening?
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, let's not get into that. But let's get into it.
Yo, I love the burrito knees people.
She said one cultural food, so I was like, all right, a burrito.
Culture of food.
Oh, I thought you said cultural food.
No, burrito culture is, pristine. It's
Let's
it's one
go.
of the
They have
greatest
sushi
cultures.
burritos. They have Mexican burritos. Let's go.
Do you remember Baja Fresh?
Yeah.
Did that exist for you guys? Baja Fresh was the best burrito spot. Like,
So-
I'm just
That
speaking on an
sounds so
American level,
familiar.
but it was
is-
so.
It's not the
What?
best, but it's the most unique.
For me, it was really fresh. Really, like they had all these, like lobster, shrimp burrito, and it was like so fresh. And they had like all the toppings and stuff. You put as much as you
Is
want.
it like
so it wasn't
Subway?
Like
But like
No.
burrito?
Because you know at like Chipotle and stuff, you gotta like tell them, and
Yeah.
then they're like, it's not.
They
and
have
you
their
don't
own
get to, like, pick-
mixtures that are like
They have
really
their
good.
own, and it was like a whole table that they had of. It was
I know
really
they
good.
had like a bunch of sauces and everything. I used to actually, when I was working, there was a Baja Fresh near us, and all my coworkers are like, "Why do you love Baja Fresh?" Like I would always go to Baja Fresh because it was one so close and two just so good, and everyone was like, "Yo, why do you like Baja Fresh? It sucks." But I was like, "No, it's
They're
the
wrong.
best."
There was one close to my house, and they closed it down, and then I had to. eat
I don't
Baja.
even, like, I have a faint memory of it, but I don't even really
It's
know.
not
about
that
it.
popular, so
Yeah, I don't know why not.
So
but
Mexican? Is that what like both of you guys would choose Mexican food for the rest of your life?
burrito
I-
knees.
I think. Well, I just said it. To be honest, this is one of those. This is one of those answers that like I'm not proud of, because I mean Mexican I'll go with, but I have to choose Pakistani, like,
Oh.
or just South Asian or something like that. I do eat that basically every day, and I'm fine
Yeah.
with it. And if I had to eat it every day, I'd be okay with it.
Frost, can I
But-
call you out? Because you don't eat South Asian food every day. Your mom makes bomb every country. Your mom,
Yeah,
mind
all
you,
cultural.
Frost's mom is an amazing cook, but also she makes literally a new country every day. Like there
But
is no
but
consistency.
it's like it has
Desi
like elements of this. That's
But
why
it's-
it's good.
But fried chicken is not desi.
And also, you guys, she makes it when you guys come
That might be
because
True.
she wants to like try new things and like make dishes that are like for everyone. But otherwise, I'm eating like roti and stuff basically.
Because I swear, every time we go, we're like entering it's like a field trip around the world, going to Frost's house. I'm like, oh, we have lasagna today. Oh, okay, we have what today?
Well,
Oh,
anybody, if you have no matter what the culture, if somebody is passionate about cooking, you're gonna
Yeah.
get great dishes regardless, and it'll have a touch of their style. You go to a
True.
Jamaican person's house and they might be making you better Indian food than another Indian person might, because they just have a sense of how foods taste together and putting and using their knowledge of it in
Yeah.
the best way. All right, so
True.
you said Japanese.
I said Japanese because you really can't go wrong. Like you have.
Amber,
sushi.
there's more to Japanese food than sushi, right?
I'm totally aware, and I'll get to that because
You're gonna get
listen,
tired of sushi one day.
Listen, sushi is okay, like cool, sushi, like no big deal. But they have such a variety of seafood, and on top of that, they have ramen, and not
Ramen's
only
good.
just ramen, not just noodles. They have all the noodles. They have like 15 different types of noodles in ramen. They have lo mein. They have chicken teriyaki. They have like so much. I hope
I don't know
Japanese
if that's
is the right.
Japanese.
Well, Sharku.
She said two
Japan.
things and was like, they have so.
Yeah, like okay, sushi. You have ramen. You have like
We
literally.
got it. We got it.
Like any type of shrimp, spicy, sweet, mixed.
Amber,
Soy
you
saucy.
can get that at PF Chang's. Like,
Okay, but that's what I'm saying is if I had to choose a culture of food. Okay, obviously desi, like you're taking the easy way out. Like obviously we could survive off desi for the rest of
True.
our lives, but I would like to choose Japanese as a quick runner-up because they also have a lot of flavor in their food.
They do have a lot of variety.
well, I would like to wish you luck.
Thank you very much, and I wish
And
you.
Shamir,
luck.
I would also like to wish you luck because I don't know how you are with handling. Like our stomachs are sometimes used to handling a certain type of food. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
My food, to answer your
My-
question,
Yeah.
my stomach is adjusted to burritos. It handles the burritos really well.
So you could eat a burrito every day for the rest of your life.
I would love that.
Oh
that'd
my
be, like,
gosh, I'm
amazing.
getting tired of tortillas.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning into an episode of Strange Flavors. My name is Shimmer,
I'm FARAS.
My name is Amber.
and this is brought to you by Alif Theory. This is the strangest and greatest podcast in the game.
Fact.
Fact. Confirmed?
Not fiction.
Not fiction. If you'd like to email us awesome questions, dating advice, or anything else in between, or send us music, strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com.
Sounds like SHAH-AMEER is actually on the hunt for something because he doesn't usually mention that. So please do send.
I
dating
like
advice.
that. I like that add-in.
Because when we had
We're
it,
so
it was just so fun.
qualified.
Do you like
We're so
giving dating
qualified.
advice or you like getting?
I like hearing the stories.
Oh.
And then giving, because let's be honest, we give like terrible advice, but
It's fun
but
giving
it's
it,
fun.
though.
It's fun giving it. So let us
I
know.
know
And send us
nothing.
your
I know-
craziest
I know-
dating story ever.
I know
And
as
we'll-
much
and
as
we'll read
Amber
them
knows
on the
about
pod.
Japanese food when it comes to the dating advice.
That's hilarious. If you enjoy this podcast, you can tell your friends that you can listen to it everywhere, right? Subscribe, like, and share everywhere. Tell
Mm-hmm. Everywhere.
your friends, tell your cousins, tell your fathers, tell your sisters,
Specifically
tell
your
mothers.
cousin. Tell your cousin I said what's up.
But you could also watch our beautiful faces on YouTube. Right? You can comment there. You can subscribe.
No filter, no makeup, sis.
Let's go. And then you can.
We never
also-
do that.
We never
Okay,
do
well, I
that.
was talking about me.
And then you can
I was like, you
follow
never
us.
do that.
You can follow us on all social media at Strange Flavors. So let's
Please
go.
do. Also
then
on
if you-
TikTok now.
Also on TikTok.
Ooh.
Let's go. And if you'd like to support this podcast, like Strange Flavors Town, you can. There is a link down below, and be part of Strange Flavors Town like Bobber's Bagels and Cassie's Cupcakes.
I would like to
Wow,
give a
I love
special
it.
shout out to Cassie because she actually recommended today's guest. So super
Today's
excited.
guest.
Ah,
So
thank
shout
you so
out-
much, Cassie.
Shout out Cassie's Cupcakes.
Cassie's Cupcakes.
And then if you guys didn't know, we have this awesome YouTube channel that goes by the name of Ronald Pono. We have awesome things like a Discord where you can chat and actually suggest topics and intro questions in the Discord of this podcast directly on there.
Wow.
Link
We
will be
love our
down below.
community. Thank you for being so engaged and helping us, come up with dope ideas that you want to see.
Yes. And then we also have an amazing Patreon where you can get exclusive content and even a video chat once a month with us.
That's
Patreon.com/RonaldPono. And if you'd like to also support and get amazing merch of Ronald Pono, RonaldPono.com.
Yes,
That's
sir.
so
Thank you for all of that.
exclusive.
Guys, today we're not even going to hit any topics because today's guest kept us so entertained and excited. We wish this podcast could have gone even longer, but
Facts.
I think with what we were working with, you'll be really excited to hear what we have. So the stranger today has traveled to every country in the world.
Didn't leave one out.
He is one of the youngest people to ever do so, and of course, we are picking his brain about all the logistics, the finances, and cultural dealings that come with achieving this type of ambition. We also talk about love in foreign lands, advantages and disadvantages that come with your identity, his journey through different religions, and a whole lot more. I know you all will enjoy and benefit from this conversation as much as we did. Please welcome our stranger, Sal Lavallo.
It might be a loud bang.
I'm good
in
on
like
both.
10 seconds. I think my cat's about to knock down the Christmas tree.
Get it together, cat. What's the cat's name?
Lala. It means to sleep in Swahili, and she's not sleeping.
What a fun name.
That is such a
Right?
fun name.
It
And
is.
the other one is Beba, which means to be held in Swahili.
Lala and Bebo.
Lala and Beba.
That's so cute.
See, now those are cat names.
Right?
Right?
Who are you coming here, Shami?
No.
Oh.
SHAH-AMEER has a very desi cat name.
It's cat. In Urdu.
Yeah, but that's what desi people do.
Yeah.
Sal, tell us where you are right now.
I am at home in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE. And it is it's the beginning of my weekend. So this is how I've chosen to spend my equivalent of my Friday night.
Right here on Strange Flavors. Let's go.
We're so humbled, and we're super excited to have you. Like, we were just talking about this before you came on. It was just like, this, I think, your perspective on so many things is so nice to be able to see you on YouTube and Instagram, and then have you here to basically, it feels like we're watching one of your videos because that's how your videos feel.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I love it. I feel like it's, you said at the beginning that it's, the name is like Strange Flavors because it's strangers, but I'm like, we're already friends. We've been talking for 10 minutes. So,
The viewers don't know that. We did not have a conversation before this podcast.
Well, you're perfect for it though, because you meet, quote unquote strangers all the time. And basically that is kind of like the whole thing with our podcast is that, we're all strangers until we're not. And sometimes your neighbors are strangers to you, and you don't even know who you're living next to. You don't know anything about their lives. But, the more you kind of converse and get to know each other, like the more commonalities you find and the more you learn. So it's nice.
And that's one of the biggest lessons I had from visiting every country was about how everybody is 90% similar to you, and the differences are what's cool about it. So I always say, whenever people like in COVID, they're like, oh, I can't travel, I can't do anything new. But it's like, you don't know everything about yourself. So how can you think that you know everything about all of your neighbors? How can you think that you know everything about your town? So we can, there's the Socratic Paradox, which is like the wisest man knows that he knows nothing. And I like to say that the most traveled know that they've been nowhere, because the more you learn about the world, the more you realize it's not a thing that it's not a thing you can learn or know entirely. And then it just pushes you to think, okay, what don't I know about my family or the people around me or whatever? And then you all.
Yeah, that's a good point that, during the COVID year, a lot of people kind of reflected on a lot of things that they've always wanted to do or accomplish. I remember at the beginning, especially like the Home Depot was totally out of materials and packed because people were working on their projects at home and everything. For you being a traveler and as many places as you get to go, what was this year like for you?
Yeah, so I haven't been on a plane in over a year, since December 3rd. Not that I'm counting.
Does that make you sad?
Well, what's funny is that I because the weather is so great in Abu Dhabi, November until April. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to, for the first time ever, I'm because I normally travel at least once a month. And I was like, I'm not going to leave for 5 months. And I'm just going to get to know Abu Dhabi better and, or see the new things that I've never, I've been here 10 years, but what haven't I gone to? And then I had planned to travel all of March, all of April. And it all got canceled. And so it was this idea of staying put for 4 months turned into staying put for 12 months. And so I do really want to travel. What's hard is figuring out where do I want to go first? Because when you're traveling so much, there's not as much importance or as much weight put on each trip. But now when it's more of a luxury to be able to travel, it's more of what exactly do I want to do? Also, I don't think I introduced should I introduce myself and say what, about the travel?
We do an introduction beforehand. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Everyone knows that. And we have a clickbaity title and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
but I wanted to ask, I think I read somewhere, are you one of the youngest people to travel every country?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of, so the quick answer, yes, one of the youngest. And then the question of what does it mean to visit a country? What is a country? So there are a few people, 2 or 3 people that have done it younger, but a few of them have counted the airport, or they have counted borders.
So there's a little community of you guys that we
all
know each other
basically know each other, or know of each other. We've mostly met or spoken.
How many people is it about?
There's less than 200 who've done every country, but there's only there's less than 10 that have done it in their 20s. And, so we're all pretty aware of
and you're one of those 10.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 people younger than me, maybe 2 or 3 people younger than me. But I sometimes will be but you didn't actually go
the shade.
Oh snap.
Did you feel like that personally at some point where you're okay, at some, I feel like this is almost like a checklist thing and you have to check yourself, or were you being able to enjoy each culture individually?
I was pretty lucky because I never did it really on purpose. So I was actually on a podcast a year before I finished. And in that podcast, I had hit 150 countries. and it was this like podcast for people who've been to every country or are close to it. And the guy was like, you can be the youngest to do it. And I'm like, no, like I'm gonna wait. Like I don't really care about that. Like I'm gonna, I'll do it sometime in my life, but not soon. And then 1 year later, I had finished, and so it's kind of like a switch around. And so I was mostly doing it. So I was mostly doing it for work or to visit friends or for fun. I wasn't doing it to try and to get to every country until kind of the last year or the last 6 months. And so there was one trip to Central Africa where I was doing like 8 countries in the trip. And in a lot of these countries, because of the amount of the few flights, and because of the way the infrastructure in the country is set up, you either go for like 2 weeks or like 2 days. Like you have to kind of like decide. And I did mostly like for only a couple days each, and that felt a little bit like I was checking the box. But at the same time, in each country, I had a really exciting experience. And I've always said, like, if I'm in a place for 4 days or 4 months, I'm gonna like make the best of each moment. So there's no country that I feel like I had a bad experience in, or that I didn't get like enjoy my time in. So the average for me was about a week in each country. There's 15 I've stayed in for 2 or more months. And I think there's like 10 that I didn't sleep in, like places like Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, and a couple of random ones. But the average was usually like 7. And I always prefer to have a reason to be in a place. Like I just think it's more exciting. Like I love traveling for work. And sometimes people say, oh, but all you're doing is like sitting in an office, but you're learning about the culture and the economy in a totally different way than you ever would as a tourist. I went to international boarding school that had students from 90 different countries, and I've stayed with friends from boarding school in 75 different countries. And that was always really fun. So like, if you ask me, like, what did I do in Nicaragua? I was mostly just hanging out at my friend's house. We like watched like Dora the Explorer, but it was like her teaching English rather than teaching Spanish.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's such like a silly thing. Like to me, it was like my time was hanging out with my friend, and that was what was, important at the time.
Yeah. How old were you when you actually accomplished going to every country?
I just turned 27. So it was like a month, 2 months after I turned 27.
And you're 30 now, right?
Yeah, I just turned 30. I feel
You
like
mentioned-
an adult now.
Now you are, after hitting 30, yeah. Depends how you define adult, right? But you said you travel for work sometimes. What are you currently doing? What have you been doing for work to be able to afford doing all of this stuff?
Yeah, so I work for the government of Abu Dhabi as I'm the head of foreign direct investment at the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, which is a government
Sounds very
entity
important.
Right.
My favorite country in the world is the UAE, and my favorite place is Abu Dhabi. And I've always said that for the decade that I've lived here, or when I was traveling from here. And I would always joke that I talk about it so much that it should be my job. And now it is. Like what I do is I bring investment into Abu Dhabi, and we invest in companies that are coming into Abu Dhabi on behalf of the government. And so that's really exciting. And before that, I studied economic development. That's a lot of the reason why I was interested in traveling. And I worked as a management consultant with McKinsey and Company, and as doing like economic development work mostly. And then I worked in with the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair doing like economic development work. And then I joined the government.
Cool. When I want to know, when was like the first thought you had to start traveling and get curious to just start hitting all these different countries?
Yeah, so my parents are both immigrants. So my father's from Italy and my mother's from Germany, but I grew up in the States. And so when I was, kind of maybe like you guys, when we were talking about the idea of home, it was never just, like the house. It was these countries far away. And I also have a lot of family, my Italian family, a lot of them live in Argentina. So when people would talk about family and home, it wasn't this like small thing. So it always made the world feel accessible. And then going to international boarding school, having friends from all over the world, again, it just made everything feel accessible. And so I think that's kind of like the first point was the world always felt like I could access it. And the second point was that my parents always loved to take us on road trips around America, and they never wanted to go to the same place twice. They were like, let's go see something new. And we would always say, oh, like, how many states have we been to? And so I think that got in my head of like counting, your travels and like.
Where'd you grow up in America?
I grew up in Indiana, and then I went to boarding school in New Mexico, and then uni in New York.
Were you kind of like, did you separate yourself from everyone else being, having immigrant parents and then, being able to travel and have family in other places?
Kind of. I mean, I feel like we were not really. I mean, it was, I think it's easier being like a white immigrant, obviously in America, because people don't know. But, I do think we were probably one of the only houses where people spoke different languages at home, like with the grandparents and stuff. And where when I think of my parents, I always think of them as like Italian and German. But then whenever I've traveled with them abroad, I'm always like, you're so American. Like they,
that's funny.
And I think that, and they both came over when they were young as well. So I think we're very, adapted to like American culture. But, when I decided myself to move abroad, and I think I'll probably stay in Abu Dhabi forever, I've talked to my grandparents about it, and, the idea, like the American dream, moving to America, and then is like for your kids and for your grandkids. And then, I remember my grandfather being like, like, I did this for you,
Come on, Sal.
And then I'm like, well, I'm doing this for, I'm doing this for my children too.
Sure. Are you pretty cultural when it comes to your Italian and German side?
Yeah. So so yesterday I was doing a webinar for work. Like I was on a panel, and it was with the Italian ambassador. And so I spoke Italian at the very beginning, and I have a really horrible Italian accent or American accent when I speak Italian, but I was like, oh, I'll do it. So there's, I think what I would say is that there's a lot of like cultural aspects that we do, like the food, like a lot of Italian food. I do feel like Italians that came to America became very like Italian American, and that's like a culture in and of itself. And since the Germans somewhat similarly have like pretty well adapted, but I do feel comfortable and at home when I'm in Italy and Germany as well.
Yeah.
You
Amber,
said you want to.
something?
Yeah. Why do you want to stay where you are? Like, what about it is like, if you've seen everything in the world, like what compels you to stay there?
Yeah, I think what's exciting about the UAE is like the trajectory, like it's always getting better. Like I've been here 10 years, and the island I'm living on didn't exist when I moved here. The island where my office is didn't exist. The social scene has completely changed. The economy has completely changed. The demographics of the people that are here has completely changed. Like, and that's just so exciting. And because I studied economic development and I also studied identity, like those are like my two parts of my degree, it's like the best place to be for economic development, because it's one of the most amazing development stories of our time. And then identity wise, for stuff like race, gender, sexuality, religion, nationality, all these things are so like relevant here that I think it's the best place to learn. I think it has the highest quality of life, and it's the place with the best opportunities. And it's what I also enjoy about it here is that it's so that's like a shared thing among the populace. Like everybody here is like building a better future, whether it's the local population who, a couple generations ago, really had nothing, and now, are one of the wealthiest places in the world. And then the expats like myself, we are getting a new experience that we wouldn't get in our home countries. And then also even like the labor force, they're having opportunities for the first time in their lives to provide for their families and making their future better. And so everybody has that kind of optimism. And it's just nice to be in a place where it feels like it's getting better and where everybody feels like their lives are getting better. Whereas when I go back to the States, it's like people are so unhealthy, and like
we've had quite a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it makes me sad. Like I don't like, it's not a, yeah. I mean,
if you could choose a second favorite place, like if you couldn't live where you live now, where would you live?
So I also have I keep a home in Tanzania. I have a couple small farms there, and I love it. It's like a small village, and it's like a totally different.
Like you have farms there?
Yeah, I have like three, and I have some friends who who manage them, and I go every year. Usually, I haven't been this year, obviously, but it's a totally different vibe. Like it's it's a village, dirt roads, it's but I love it. It's a totally different kind of like lifestyle, but I really enjoy it there. So
What's the reason for having the farms? Like what
Yeah.
what made you want to have that, and how did
So I
you
used
get that?
Yeah, I used to run a small NGO, and we were working on culturally inclusive development. So we were looking at how can development not just be an increase in economic indicators, but an increase in quality of life, and how is quality of life dependent on each individual society. So we would travel to different places around the world, and rather than being like, this is what we're going to give you, or this is what you need, as like outsiders thinking we know the right answers, we would do a series of workshops where we would lead the community through through questioning themselves, and then ask them, what do you want, and provide that to them so that they would make the decisions and do so in a organized kind of way. And the first project was in this village in Tanzania, and I just loved it from the beginning. And then I went back a second time, and I was just like, I really, really love this, and I don't just want to like give grants or help people. Like I want something to like a reason to go back. And I also didn't want to just give people, like I wanted to help my friends there, but I didn't just want to give cash or something. So I said, you know what, like I'll buy a farm, and it'll be mine and a reason for me to go back, but you guys keep all the money and all the food from it. And then and it's a reason to go. And then every time I go back now, I usually like buy another one, or I'll like I have one that's like below water, like it's rice, so it's like below water. I have another one, like I have different types. I'm like, I like collecting.
You're a diverse farmer.
Yeah.
When you said, when I saw your videos and I saw that you were in UAE, it actually kind of made sense right away. We have this friend, Divya from Dubai, and she is fluent in 10 languages, and she knows more than that, but just from growing up there. And when you're a kid, you just absorb everything, and it's just natural to you. Don't go and like learn it in that way. And to hear and see like that sort of upbringing where culture and diversity, and she explains how much diversity she had in her school, and all the sort of events she went to, versus in America, where I thought we were supposed to be that way, right, where sometimes it's like it's not celebrated the same way. So it's unique to see that difference.
Yeah, I think it's like it's real in a way, and I think it's also because of our location. Like we really are in the center of the world. We are 8 hours from 80% of the world's population, 4 hours from a third of it, and so we, like in my job, bringing companies into Abu Dhabi, we have a lot of companies that like want to access India and Pakistan, and they do that from here because it's 3-4 hours away. Or East Africa, Tanzania is only a 4-hour flight away. The rest of the Middle East, or you go to Central Asia, also only 4 hours away. You go to Europe, it's 5 or 6 hours. So it's
Crazy.
It's whereas America there's a lot of different cultures, but it's so disconnected, and it's also like so big in and of itself, and so it doesn't have to like focus on things other than itself in a lot of ways. And then I think also lately there's been this, even though the population has been diversifying in America, and historically we'd always say anybody can become American. It's not like American is not is not an ethnic identity. Now, in some ways, it is being looked at as that, and that kind of makes me sad. Like for example, I speak Spanish, and a lot of people would be like, "Why do you speak Spanish?" I'm like, "Oh, because I'm American, and in America, you kind of have to." And to me, that makes sense, but to a lot of people, that doesn't make sense.
To Americans, that wouldn't make sense either.
Yeah.
Like I lived in New Mexico and Texas, right?
Yeah.
So it's like and New Mexico is a bilingual. It's the two bilingual states constitutionally are Hawaii and New Mexico, right? So New Mexico is English and Spanish. And so that, but it should be more of that, right? Yeah. There's so many people that like this idea of like we're in America speak English is so opposite of.
Yeah. How many languages do you speak?
To be honest, I really only speak English like perfectly, or not even perfectly. Like I speak English, fluently. And then I'm quite good in Spanish, Swahili, German, and Italian. And then
not Arabic?
You were speaking
Yeah,
a little
and then-
Arabic at the beginning.
Yeah, in French and Arabic, I can like I'm in a lot of interactions in Arabic and I can understand what's happening, but I'm not very good at speaking it. But I can, I can pray in Arabic. I can understand conversations, but I sometimes get lost in like specifics.
Well, that's better than us. We can just pray. That's it.
Yeah.
And read.
and read it
And
right,
not understand it.
Not understand what we're reading though.
I had a phone call with a girl, a woman who I think is for like a friend of mine connected us, I think for work or something. And she was a, what's the word when you can recite the entire Quran?
Hafiz.
Yeah. And she's Pakistani and she's a Hafiz. And she, I was like, oh, and like, do you like speak it? Like, do you know what you're saying? And she's like, no. And I was like,
Oh.
so you can like, how is that? But I was like, so you like, and it's not, it just like blew my mind that she says she has to practice an hour every day to keep it up.
Oh,
You know, like that it's, and then I just thought, but if you don't know what you're like saying, that's sad.
Well, usually as they're memorizing it, they do like understand what the context of like a surah is or something like that. But yeah. Word for word, I think most people that are memorizing, they don't know every single word.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. But,
I feel like it's like when you sing a song, but you don't realize what you're singing, like what it actually means.
Dangerous.
That's how I feel it is.
That was like me singing Candy Shop in like third grade.
Yeah.
One of the main ways I learned Swahili was to they love Rihanna, my friends in my village in Tanzania. And they would ask me, what is she saying? And I would have to think, and it was like a good way to learn words that I wouldn't learn like normally. So I'd try and explain it, so they were like, there was the song like Man Down. And I was like, oh wow. And I was like, well, like this girl got raped and she's telling her mom, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go kill the guy. And they're like, what? Like, this is a fun song. Like, how's that?
Jeez.
And then they're like, okay, what about like Unfaithful? And I'm like, well, her like husband cheated on her and or she's
cheating on the husband.
She's cheating on her husband. And they're like, what? And then they were like, and then there's a song Te Amo. And I'm like, well, this is complicated because it's a different language. And I was like, well, she's dancing with a girl and the girl's Spanish and the girl says Te Amo and Rihanna's asking if that means I love you. And they're like, is Rihanna a lesbian? And then they were like, what? And then they were like, what about Umbrella? And I was like, she's just kind of saying umbrella over there's not much.
She's offering an umbrella to somebody in the rain.
Yeah. No, it's a good, like, I feel like songs is a good way to learn another language because it's like, there's random word. Like I always say, like I speak home German and I speak village Swahili. Like I know enough to hang out with my family in Germany, and in Swahili I know enough to live in the village, but I can't like do my job in any of those languages because I don't like. There's very specific words that I say, like for invest. Like I don't know how to say investments in Swahili as an example. Like I don't like when would I have to say that?
What do you have to like learn as far as basics of language whenever you travel to a new country? What do you kind of like keep in mind, and how do you flow with it?
Yeah, that's like there's an interesting like. That's always something I've found fascinating because I've found that people actually love the opportunity to speak English. Like people
so
love,
frustrating.
No, but it's nice when you're like they get so excited when you're like, thank you. And they're like, you're welcome. Like they're so like, as much as like, I want to learn how to say thank you in every language, I often realize that, and they do enjoy it when you're trying. It's often more fun for them. Like, it's kind of like, it seems silly because everyone thinks, oh, if you learn the language, it's showing that you care. But it's actually kind of selfish in a way, right? Because it's like your joy. Whereas when you're like, for example, when I lived in Pakistan, my driver, I would like, he was like so excited that we got to speak English. And I'd be like, well, teach me like, Urdu. And he's like, no, like teach me English. Like, like, all right, that's better. Like, we'll do that.
Yeah, sometimes I'll like go on chat roulette or something. I love, meeting strangers. That's the whole reason this podcast even exists. But sometimes I just want to talk to different people from around the world. And I ask them like what they're doing. And sometimes I'll open up Google Translate and try to like, because I feel like having a conversation is the best way rather than trying to like read or whatever. And they're always like, oh, I'm just here to learn English. And I'm just like, next. So yeah, you're right. It is absolutely selfish. It's
Yeah, I
interesting.
think that I do try and learn how to say like thank you, and like hello. But I to be honest, I don't go into every country being like, oh, I need to, because you're gonna forget. Like, it's not useful.
Mm.
And I think that it's people. I really find that people just enjoy that. I have always found like the patriotic American in me. I love when I would be like, like walking through like a small village in somewhere in like Southeast Asia, and they would be like, Obama, like, because they're like, they know America. And I'm like, bet all those French guys and the British guys when like, and they're walking and people are like, what's up, dog? And I'm like, like cultural colonialism, like, like we're the one. But then I was in Eritrea, and I was walking down the street, and this kid was like, Chinaman. And I was like, well, and then I was like, well, because the only foreigners that really are there, because China's doing a lot of projects in Eritrea, are Chinese, and so they think anybody doesn't look Eritrean is Chinese.
Oh, it's just like a foreign word for them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like the same how like in because like the movies and the TV shows that people watch usually tend to be American. So whenever you're in like Southeast Asia or Africa or wherever, people see a white person, they just assume they're American. And it's, but now that's changing a little bit, right? Like there's other, like, now with like K-pop and with like Bollywood being watched around the world too, like it's kind of cool. That's like a new type of globalization. So I found that really interesting that when the guy was like, oh, like anyone who's not from here must be from China, because that's all they know. They've only known.
People usually like will just ask to know cuss words if they want to learn some language from me. They just teach me the cuss words.
I think that's really dangerous because curse words have like such a place in language, and you can't really use them. Like, you don't know what it means, and then like to give
the impact of them either.
It's like a negative power, and then it can. And I remember once, like I was traveling with a friend. We got really frustrated about something, and she said like a curse word we had learned, and then we were just like, we actually don't know the severity. Like if you think about in English, like the different like levels of like if you call someone an idiot versus like, I don't know, like the N-word or something, it's a huge difference. So if you say like, or even whatever, like there's like if you call there's a lot of different ways to like say that a girl is bad, right? But some are like you don't say, and some you get hit if you say, and some are just mean, right? But explaining that like nuance to someone who doesn't speak the language, they're going to get confused. So if you suddenly like have a random dude calling girls like the C word, they're going to get hurt in America.
It definitely depends on context and being around. Like when usually it's like someone who just is around, you and your friends. So it's like a funny sort of thing to do, but you're right. It could, if they use it outside of that, it could be like a dangerous thing.
For sure.
Just like not even dangerous, just like rude. Like it's,
that's not how you want to represent, especially as the friend that taught it to them, like, telling them to be careful or something.
Yeah. They'll be like, Amber told me to say this.
Right. What are some other logistics of when you get ready to travel, such as like, your goals when you go to a new country, the time it takes to prepare and the time you want to spend there?
Yeah. I am really a small planner. Like I have friends who will tell me in 2022, I'm going to go to Chile, and on day 1, I'm doing this, day 2, I'm doing this. I most often land without a hotel booking, without a plan, because I want to do what I want today. I want to wake up what do I want to do and do that, especially when I travel. And so I'm like really infamous for booking last minute and finding out I don't have the visa and like struggling. But the things that I like to do is whenever I get to a new place, I'll always like go for a really long walk. Like I just like to see like the town or the city and just like understand it a little bit more, like rather than going from site to site and like being in like a taxi or whatever. I want to just kind of explore it. I also will always look like what is the like unique foods here, like the national foods. I love like experiencing a country through food. I really like art. And so I usually will go to a gallery, especially like a contemporary art gallery, because I feel like you see the culture in a really specific way. So usually that's what I'll do is I'll like, when I'm going to a new place, first I'll see if any of my friends are from there, and I'll ask them for, you know, like what I should be doing. Then I will like usually like find like a hotel that seems to be like in the right kind of place and that I enjoy. And then I will go find like the best foods to eat and like see some like cultural events.
Do you travel alone, or are you with different people?
I've done like a mix, so I've done a lot for work. So that would be like with colleagues often. One of my ex-girlfriends and I went to like 30 countries together. So that was always fun. I've done probably like 60 countries alone or something, in quite a few. I would go with friends a lot, like different friends. You know, a lot of my even one time, one of my friends' moms was like, "I'm jealous of how you like go to these crazy places," and I was like, "Come." She's like, "I can't come with you. You're my daughter's friend. I'm 50 years old." And I was like, "Whatever. Like, don't tell her. Like, just come on." we went to Mongolia, China, and North Korea together.
What?
And yeah, and the daughter's like a like a human rights activist, and she's like, "You're bringing my mom to North Korea. You're supporting like nuclear missiles." And I was like, "It costs like $1,000. I don't think we're like giving that much to the Kim regime."
Frost, you should tell him about what your mom said before this
Yeah,
podcast.
I was like, this morning I was telling my mom, I was like, "Mom, we're having this guy on who's been to every country in the world," and then I was like, she was really excited, and then I was like, "Do you have any questions for him that you want me to ask?" And she's like, "Yeah, just ask him to tell me next time he's going so I can come with him."
No, like y'all, I don't like. I've sent actually. I posted a lot of like the kind of like the best content or what people enjoy the most from me has been when I'm in my village in Tanzania. And so I decided, I was like, you know what, I put together this like document, and I said, if anybody wants to go, like this is a real, like a great experience that you can have that you probably wouldn't get as a normal tourist. And so I think I've had something like 12 of my followers go to my village, staying in the house of with the family that I stay with, like hanging out with my friends, which is like really exciting.
That's crazy.
But yeah, tell your mom we can go wherever we want.
I have a question.
Don't tell your dad. We'll tell him that.
When
Sal's hanging out with everybody's moms.
That's crazy. When you pack, do you like try to pack as light as possible? Or are you naturally like a light packer, or what? And like, what do you look for in a hotel? Like, what satisfies your needs when it comes to like hotels and like packing?
Yeah. So on the packing side, I do pack pretty light, and I would rather sometimes, especially lately, now that I guess the thing is that, so like I did the 193 countries in like 13 or 14 years. So it's like was very different at different stages, right? And right now where I have like a home and I can bring stuff back to, it's different. So now I will, or not this year because of COVID, but before I would often travel really light and buy clothes there. I thought that was always fun, to be like, I bring back stuff. But I do pack pretty light, usually just like a couple outfits. And then I'll like buy stuff wherever I'm going. And then in a hotel, again, it depends on the trip, like in who I'm with, and also how long I'm staying. Like if I'm just need a place to sleep, then I'm going to get like a cheap, comfortable place, right? Because when I'm staying at like a really great resort, I don't want to leave, so
Right.
If I know that I'm going to be out and about and I want to go see all this stuff, I will, I'll just get a good place that I feel like is clean and is in a good location. But I won't get like the really nice hotel. Whereas if I'm going for like a relaxation trip, or if I'm bringing a girl, I will get like, I'll try and get something really, really nice. Cause then like the hotel, it becomes the vacation, like if you're going to the Maldives, you're going for the resort, you know what I mean? So, it really depends. And so that's what's funny is people often will be like, are you a luxury or a budget traveler? And I'm like, depends on the trip.
That makes sense.
I've stayed in places that are like I wouldn't ever let like Faras's mom stay in ever, like even. And then,
she's super picky as is. She doesn't even like. She takes her own blankets and pillows and everything. So
that's but then I've also stayed in some of the best hotels in the world, and I feel like that's what's exciting about travel, is to do it in different ways. People will also be like, are you a fast or a slow traveler? I'm like, again, like there's the 15 countries I've lived in, and then there's the 10 countries I didn't sleep in, and but it's just about having a good time each one. Yeah, so I think each trip is always different, and I'll think about it at the time, what do I want? Do I want to go relax, or do I want an adventure and maybe be uncomfortable? And I like to do kind of it all.
For people that ask about financials, I'm guessing there's no one answer, right? It also depends on what country you're going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's I never count, because I traveled a lot for work, and I don't know how much it costs to go to every country. I have no idea. I've heard from the community of people who've done it. A lot of people say if you average $1,000 a country, it's probably a good estimate. There's countries where you'll do a lot less. There's countries where you'll have to do more. Depends how long you're in each one. And it's also just up to what you want to spend your money on. I have friends who love really, really nice hotels. Or I normally spend more money on food. I'll rather do a really nice dinner, and then I'll go from the best restaurant in the country to the worst hotel, because that's the preference. But it depends how you want to travel. And I always tell people when they're asking where should they go, it's always okay, well, and how should they budget? It's how many days do you want to go? What level of luxury do you want to travel in? And how what is your budget? And so if you're telling me you only have $1,000 and you have a week, then I'm not going to tell you to go to whatever, the Bahamas, right? I would say, okay, maybe for $1,000 for a week, you should go somewhere that's probably easier to be cheaper. But if you're saying you have $1,000 for 2 days, then you can, so I think it really depends on what you are and what the preference is. And then you should just always do what you, one thing I find fascinating is that people will overestimate how much they like to travel, and then under prioritize it in their financing. So I have a lot of people will tell me, friends, they'll say, oh, I wish I had the money to go travel like you do. And then they'll be like, oh, and I'm, just bought this, whatever, $5,000 thing. And I'm like, you realize you could do a lot of travel with that, but it's different priorities, and that's totally fine, because whatever you want to spend your money on, you should, right? But if it is travel, there's ways to get it done. And I also always try and push people to think about travel in a much broader sense, especially because a lot of my following is from India, Pakistan, Malaysia, and they aren't able to travel to travel doesn't mean getting on a 12-hour flight. It could be about going to the restaurant that serves a different type of food in your hometown. It could just be talking to your neighbor who's 80 years old and asking about history. There's to travel is really about experiencing new things, and you can experience new things in a lot of different ways. It's so easy to see new things when you're in a new country because everything is different. But you can go in your get new lessons from your best friend, but you just have to have that perspective and that mindset.
I think that's a really important point. And Shamir, I'm glad you asked that question too, because I think, Sal, you're right, where it's people will consider the financial aspect and then it totally determines where they go from there. I know growing up in a very small town in Maryland, people have never gone outside of the town. There's so many people that don't know anything outside of that. And when they, when I'd be working different jobs, they would often hear that I'm going to even just Texas or New York or California or Florida. And they would be like, oh my God, you travel so much. And how do you do that? And I'm just this is just in the US. It doesn't require any, big sort of damage to your bank account in any way. But at the same time, I think that there's also this privilege because I got to go to those places because we were, invited there. We were flown out. You talk about, not even knowing how much certain things cost because of your work. So I wanted to kind of highlight that aspect of, do you ever get flack or questions about being white in in your appearance and getting by with certain things, whether it be getting visas to a certain place or whatever it may be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think travel is one of like the biggest privileges. I mean, I think the first thing that I would say though is also to we have to like check ourselves in assuming like if we prioritize travel, then traveling seems great. But that person who's never left Maryland, they might be way happier than you because their goal is family and their family is great. And so I never try and like I do think travel is a privilege because you get to see the rest of the world. But I also think that we're kind of like the economic theory of like a rational being. Like I assume that everybody is trying to maximize their happiness, and I hope that everybody, just like me, wakes up every day and does what they want to do. In terms of the privilege question, I think that 1,000% I'm insanely privileged in almost every way. I did I studied identity in university, and we did this like binary privilege test that was America focused. So privilege isn't binary, but it was just as an example to get us thinking. And so it was like white, non-white, Christian, non-Christian, like male, female, heterosexual, heterosexual, all these things. And there was like 30, and this was before I converted. So I was everything but tall. Like I was like 29 of the privileges, but I wasn't tall. And what was interesting is like in that class, like the reason people take identity studies is usually because they want to like fight for their rights. It's not very many privileged white men who are sitting in a class about gender or race, And so it was interesting for me to say, okay, let me like recognize my privilege and appreciate all the things that I get from it, but then work really hard to give that to other people. Yeah. Right. So, and then how do you, because it would be really dumb to not, there's like a difference between taking advantage of your privilege and privileging yourself over somebody else. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's, how do I appreciate all of it while also working to give that to others. And I try to do that in my personal life and in my professional life. Right. And especially as I grow in my career and I'm able to make like hiring decisions and stuff, saying very like, always like my teams are always at least 50% female, like there's never a plurality of one race, and especially not of like white, and like just doing like little stuff like that, I think is really important. And also like the stories that you share as a content creator, like how are you making sure that you aren't only showing certain countries as poor or certain countries as war torn, and that's so to be mindful of it, but at the same time, all of that is still coming from me as a educated, white, wealthy man, mm-hmm. And it's, but that's also what I am, like I can't change it. So it's about being, giving that space to others during, quarantine. The Black Lives Matter, protest and movement got really important in the States, and being really far away from it, but also not being, like being in the UAE is very like different than being in the States. And then also being like a white man, it's not really about me, but also having this like platform or like some sort of platform. I was like, what do I say? And so what I decided to do there was I had 4 of my activist friends, 3 of which were Black, 1 of which was queer, and then a white female activist. And I just like interviewed them because I was like, I'm giving my platform to you today, and we had these like great conversations, and that to me was like how you can use your privilege of to try and make things, but also it's always going to be there. And I think sometimes it's about learning about it. I remember one of the first times that I knew I was traveling in Thailand with my best friend who's Black American, and I was like, I really have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to walk into that hotel, like there's like a Sheraton or something. And he was like, you can't just walk into a hotel and use their toilet. And I was like, of course I can't. Like, what? Why would they say no to someone needing to go to the bathroom? And he's like, oh, because you're like white. Like they will think you belong there. Like no one's going to look at you when you walk in. And he's like, if I walked in there, they're going to immediately be like, what are you doing? And then it's like to belong, everywhere, or to be preferred everywhere is interesting. And then I also remember when I was studying identity for 4 years at like a pretty like intense rate of like thinking about this stuff, I never understood why like reverse racism wasn't a thing. Like all the professors would always say that, and everyone in the class would be like, yeah. And I'd be sitting there like too embarrassed to be like, doesn't it exist? And then I was living in Nairobi, and I was reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black, what's it? The Letter to His Son. What, the book I'm talking about? Anyway, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a really amazing Black American author, and he wrote a book to his son essentially about being a Black man in America. And I was like, this is exactly what I feel like being white in Kenya about, like, people. And I was like, so I said to one of my Black American friends, like, see, like, reverse racism does exist. And then she said, no, because even though they're taking advantage of you, they're taking advantage of your power. They're not taking advantage of your lack of power. And then it was like, boom. I was like, duh. Like now. And so like, whereas people would be like, that's why like people of color can't be racist, like, because racism is taking advantage of a lack of power. And if you lack power, you're not able to take advantage of that. Right. Like a white person, or like a Black person can't be racist because they are lacking the power in the institutional, like, you know, like what.
Interesting.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot about this, but it's like my
no, it's okay.
passion.
I think also one of the points that stuck out to me that while you were speaking was, how you were saying that the amount of things that you check off as far as privilege, and seeing it in that way and not just seeing it in a way of, okay, so it's just about skin color. Because I am somebody who has always felt, the more that I grow up, I feel a lot more privileged than those around me, even if they're white. And, even when we go to airports or like, I hear about my friends' experiences, I've never been stopped or checked or anything. Whereas someone like SHAH-AMEER, he gets stopped often, or like my friend Ahmed, or, other people that have something in their name. And then I also look at the other side where I've worked in different organizations and sometimes with refugees, and we have different people that, are white and work in environments with, people of color. And then they have a struggle of trying not to look like a white savior. And I've always found that interesting, where it's like, they're like, I'm just trying to help. Like, what do I do to not do that? And this term became popular in America this year, especially. It was like the white guilt. And I kind of cringe at that. It's like, I think we're kind of forgetting what it's all about, and how we can use all of our privileges to our advantage, white or not. And sometimes I think that gets lost.
I mean, I think, everybody has privilege in different ways and in different situations, and privilege isn't a static thing. It changes, right? Like when it changes based on age and race and gender and class and all of these different things. And when you're in, and it's dynamic like that. And what's important then is to understanding those dynamics and the different ways that you can do it. I was once in Rwanda. I love Rwanda. I go quite a bit. I think it's also one of the most interesting development stories of our time, and like going from the horrific genocide in 1994 to being the safest country in Africa and cleanest now. It's amazing. And I was there, and I was with a Brazilian friend, and she was like, let's go to this Halloween party. But I was just traveling. I didn't have any costume. But I studied critical development. So I like make fun of people who try and like develop countries. And I was like, I'll go as like a white savior Ken. So I wore like a polo shirt, and it was like all of these like UN and WHO and NGO people, and they were like, what are you? And I was like, oh, I'm white savior Ken. And they hated it.
Oh my God.
And then I went to, then there's there's a few Rwandese. And when I was like, oh, I'm white savior Ken, they were like, this is the best thing. And we were like, and so that became my like who I hung out with that night. And I also feel like here a lot of people will say, it's a lot about making people just feel normal. I think it's like kind of what the whole point of the podcast is, right? Like the stranger thing, and how do you connect with people? And, with most of my friends are local Emiratis, and some people just like put them like in like they're afraid of like talking to the girls. They think they're very conservative or something. And I treat them like I would anybody, because we're all human, and that like enables it. But also there's a way to treat people like a human, but also still realize like your privilege and understand the cultural differences and be respectful to that. But it's not easy, and that's why people wish it was binary, because it would make, if it could just be like you're privileged and you're not, that would be great. But
one of your privileges was that before you converted, so that it like helped your privilege, and also that you pray in Arabic. So I'm assuming that you converted to Islam, right?
Yeah.
And
yes, like
out of all the countries that you visited and all the cultures that you visited, like you chose to convert to Islam. Like, how did you come about that, and what was the reason for that?
yeah. So I was I was raised Catholic, and I mean, like the short version is that I was always very spiritual, and I would always pray a lot. And I would love to pray with anybody. So whenever I was like traveling, when I was in, I lived in Mumbai for 3 months in the summer, and I prayed there with Zoroastrians and with Hindus. And then I was in the indigenous part of Venezuela and Brazil, and I prayed with like the local indigenous it's like animist religions in a way. I lived for 4 months in Tel Aviv, and I prayed with like in Jewish temples. I lived in the Middle East, and I prayed in like Muslim places. I just like love praying. Like I love connecting with God. And I was calling myself like a mystic pantheist. I was like, I believe that God is everywhere and that we can have a direct connection with God. Mm-hmm. And I was in Tanzania.
I feel like low-key that's like a travel stereotype, like a travel person stereotype, like that say things like that.
I mean, fair, but but I think that's fine. I feel like it's more the travelers I meet are like atheists. They'll just be like, I believe in like Earth. And I do meet, like, for example, like we, like I don't know if you guys pray, but like with the sajda is putting your head to the earth, right? And it's about like putting your heart above your head, right? I have friends like yogis who they're like, I don't really pray, but like when I'm like put my third eye like to the power of like Mother Nature, I'm like, that's why we do that. Like it's like that's the same. They're like, no, but like you're praying, like what I'm doing is like meditate. I'm like it's the same. Like, and so that's why I loved like praying with all these different, because it was the same thing. It was about trying to form a connection with the divine, like with the ineffable, like what we cannot call, right? And when I was in my farm, this old man was like, well, what are you? Because I would go on Fridays to the mosque and on Sunday to the church. He's like, you're weird. And I was like, well, like, and I was like, these are the things that I believe. And he's like, oh, okay, you're Muslim. And I was like, what? And he's like, you just told me the 5 tenets of Islam. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, tell me more. And as he like started to say it, I was like, it was the first time I felt like I was hearing the truth and not just a truth. And then I got really interested about like the history of it and like what, separating culture from religion and separating religion from spirituality and like what does Islam actually mean. And the more that I got into it and have in the past 8 years since I converted, or 7-8 years since I converted, I think it is the one and only truth. And I don't think it's always practiced in that way. We could have a whole podcast about that. That's like also one of my, like Islam. My 2 favorite conversation topics are identity and Islam, or religion more broadly. So happy to do those. But, I think people don't realize that Islam is like the most flexible religion in the world. Like that's the reason it was able to spread so fast, because it's very like, when like right after the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we would go and, they spread within 200 years into Europe. And it was because they would say, okay, like it's just about believing that there's one God and being on the journey to God. Like that's really what Islam is, right? And they would be like, okay, but for example, like when they got to the Christian areas, they're like, well, we do the rosary. Like that's fine, you can do that. Like we'll call it the misbah or the tasbih. Like just instead of saying the Hail Marys, do like the names of Allah. It's so adaptable. And what's cool about having traveled to every country in the world and having lived in a lot of Muslim countries as well is that it's practiced so differently and it's imbued into different cultures. And yet people will be like, oh, this is like a Muslim thing. It's like, no, that's like that's an Emirati thing, or like that's a Pakistani thing. It's not, that has nothing to do with Islam, but people associate it so much. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like converting is the best thing I ever did, but yeah, and I did it in Tanzania. I didn't do it in the UAE, and I didn't do it for a woman, or that's what everybody always assumes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know we'd get a khutbah from Brother Sal today, but that was great to have that. I wanted to ask you, I see like a lot of people on TikTok, especially, where they.
I just launched TikTok. Sal Lavallo, follow me.
Follow him, and people.
Let's go.
They'll have this "I just converted" story, right? And immediately there's so much welcoming and warmth, and they're like, "Welcome, welcome, welcome," blah, blah, blah. And immediately they hit all these followers, and it's great. And then the second TikTok they post after that, it's the Haram police just going off on them. I wanted to ask you, have you faced the backlash that comes with Muslim communities from different cultures and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't post about what I wanted to be, and I have a lot of my followers who are very devout Muslims, and I've also have a lot of my followers who say I'm the only Muslim that they've ever heard of or talked to, and I like both of it. Like I don't want any adjectives. Like I don't want to be a Muslim traveler or American traveler. Like I just want to be like me. That's very cliche, but like
or
I don't
convert.
want it. Yeah, or like that also I don't like. I hate when people be like, "Oh, wallah, you chose it. You know, like you're better than us because you chose." I'm like,
but you identify as a revert. Like that's what you call yourself.
like no, I'd say that I'm Muslim. Like I don't think it like matter. Like in there's people will be like, well, like what were you born as? And they'll be like, a baby. Like like you're not born as like, they'll be like, oh, but like you were a Catholic when you're, like, yeah, like I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't born something. Like nobody is. So, but I have, for example, I did a video about Islam with one of my friends who has a big following, and I got a lot of Muslim followers from that. I also did a conversion story post somewhere that also went viral, and a lot of my followers are Muslim. And I've also posted like a video of me dancing, and I lost like 1,000 followers from that.
And DMs, brother, you should not be doing this. You should not be promoting this.
I've like hugged like a female in a video, or like talked about like a girlfriend and been told. And I think what's funny about it to me is like, number one is like a huge, one of the most important parts of the most important part of Islam is la ilaha illallah, right? There's no God but God. And a part of that is that we cannot judge anybody else or tell anybody else like you're going to hell for this, right? At the same time, we are supposed to give like recommendations to others. And so like that's like an interesting balance of like how do you do that? But at the same time, Islam is incredibly accepting of sin, right? And of like learning about it and like learning from it. And when we're praying, like an important part of the prayer, when we sit up, we say astaghfirullah, like we say, forgive me for my sins, right? Because we have to say that 5 times, and we actually say it 20 times a day because you say it every time, right? So we have to say that 20 times a day because we're sinning every day, right? And we should be aware of our own sins. And like most sins for people are not what you can see. Most people's sins are in their minds, right? And so if, I don't think it's a sin to hug my female friend. Because I don't think it takes me further away from God. But if you do think that, like, worry about other stuff. Like, they worry about yourself, first of all. And then for me, there's a lot of other things I need to worry about more than that, So,
bro, you're about to get us with all those comments now. Like, did he just? You're about to get attacked on this podcast.
Listen, they can worry about. Everybody needs to worry about their own set of sins, basically.
I'm just
but like
with
the thing is like I am the first to admit, like I sin, like we all do, and so but call me out on what I actually sin on. Don't call,
no hypocrisy and like judgment in that negative way that takes you away from being a part of a religion.
If people actually knew what my sins were, they wouldn't even ever subscribe. If you think like you can film a sin of mine, you're probably true, but like the worst stuff is always in the mind, right? And I think, like, for example, in that video that went viral of my conversion, I was praying in it, and I had a calf injury. I'd sprained my leg, and so when I was praying, my leg was up, and so many people were like, "Oh, brother, your foot needs to be down," and I was like, always give some, like, one of my imams told me once, if you see a person eating pork, a Muslim eating pork, what do you say, right? And what you should say is, "Are you starving?" Right? Because eating, like, like, to assume that they're sinning is a sin in yourself, right? And so, are they, like, is that a sin, right? And
I would ask, what does it taste like?
Because we're curious.
Is it good?
But like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think I do get that though, but I'm like, I am gonna dance in some stuff, and I am gonna, like, live my own life. And if people don't want to see that in the following, like, you see 1.1% of my life, and I'm thank you for if it's a positive desire to make me a better person. But if it's just to, like, point out, like, a little thing, like, I prefer you not to. And if it's something, especially if it's, like, something I was asked to be in, like, a Muslim documentary where he's going to be, like, talking to different Muslims, and they said that they were going to make all of the women cover, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I won't be in something that is, like, I was like, that's
not
they
accurate.
wanted to show. Yeah, they're like, I want to show the diversity of Islam. And I was like, then show women that choose not to cover. And they're like, but that is, that's haram. I'm like, you think it is, but ask her if she thinks it is. And she'll probably tell you she doesn't think it is. And that's the diversity of Islam. And that's what's exciting, and so I declined the thing. And I think we all just need to assume that everybody is doing their best to get closer to God and help where we can. But, like, help yourself first, help your family. But, like, the random person on the internet, like, they have enough people hopefully around them that they're doing fine.
Yeah. I know it's been an hour. Are you able to go a little longer? Because I do want to get back to some of the travel stuff.
I'm completely chill. I mean, it's literally my weekend, and I'm spending my Friday night with you guys.
Because I know we're having a lot of fun, so I just want to make sure you're in touch with this. And I do want to get back to the more fun questions. I know we stayed a little longer.
Is Islam not fun to you?
Dang.
Well, I just want to be open to our lovely Islamophobic viewers and listeners as well. We love them, so we just want them to be able to fast forward to a more exciting part for them.
Oh man.
No, we appreciate you even going into depth about, both those subjects, about the whole privilege thing and about your conversion story. It's really great that, when you're able to be open and honest about it and not just be like, give blanket statements for the sake of covering a certain, topic. So I really respect and appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to the fun. I wanted to ask you, what's the country that you felt most welcomed in by the people?
I think probably Algeria. I was there. I was supposed to be there for 6 days, and I ended up staying for over a month. And part of that was because I was going to Libya next, and my visa got delayed. But I met this group of friends. We were supposed to just have a dinner together, and we ended up I ended up staying in their home. We're still friends to this day. It was just the most hospitable. Everybody, all the mothers wanted to cook for me. Everybody wanted to show me. It was just, it was amazing. And I really feel like Arab culture is really kind of about that. So also in the Emirates, people are incredibly welcoming. They'll always welcome you to their home, tell you it's their home, and not to make it unfun again, but travel is mentioned 27 times in the Quran, and like being a traveler is really important, and being a host is really important. Yeah. And so I feel like Arab culture, but also Islamic culture puts an emphasis on travel and being a host and being a guest. And so, I think Algeria for sure, but then also like most of the Arab world.
Mm-hmm. I want to Notice how he said the mothers thing again. Sal and the mothers. Keep your mom away from Sal.
If you want to talk about my sins, like that,
Sal and Savage.
I want to ask the flip side of that question. Maybe what was not the most pleasant hospitality?
No diplomatic answers.
Yeah, well,
Or we don't have to say based off the country. You could say your personal experience in that
Yeah.
country.
yeah, and that's what I would say. So my least favorite experience I had was the first time I went to Djibouti, and I
Where is that?
was just in the Horn of Africa. It's like borders Eritrea and Somalia,
Okay.
and it's like right across from Yemen. And it was boring. There wasn't anything to do. The people weren't kind to me. It was hot. Like, it just wasn't great. Like, we got ripped off by some stuff. And because of that experience, I was like, I have to go back again and have a better experience, because I blamed myself, not the place. I was like, maybe it was the wrong time, like in the wrong vibe, whatever. And I went back a second time and had a really great experience. And I like, for a long time, I wouldn't answer the question of like, what's the worst place? Because I was like, oh, Djibouti, like, it's totally Djibouti. But then I was like, you know what? Like, I need to give it a second chance. And so I went back and I had a great time. And I always feel like the places that I don't want to go to end up being the ones I want to go the most, because I'm like, why don't I want to go? You know, so it'll be like, if you think about like, what's the country you least want to go to, it actually is the one you're kind of the most interested in, you know, and so that ends up being kind of, it makes it more fun.
Is there like a sense of fear at all?
I don't think it's cool to be in danger. I have a lot of friends who travel a lot, who will tell you these stories of horrible things and think that it's like awesome. And it's hard to go to every country in the world without having those horrible things. I don't share those publicly usually, because I think it's like I don't like, you can read about that in the news, you know, like I'll tell you the great stuff. But I've always trying to do the safest way that I can, right? So I've been sometimes scared and usually proven wrong, you know, like and whenever I've gone to those countries, I'm always like amazed that like life goes on, and like I think you expect it to be like everyone's afraid doing nothing. I was living in Pakistan when there was the Karachi airport bombing in 2014, or the attack. I don't know if it was bombs or guns, but the attack. And my firm security, like for the company I work for, they called and, you know, they were like, you won't, like, it won't affect your performance at all if you choose not to go back. You know, but from their perspective, because I was working in Lahore, they were like, it's fine, like, because it happened in Karachi and and I, you know, also give a lot of credit to that, the firm security that I was working at McKinsey, because he's like, and I'll call your parents if you want, like, them to have it explained to them as well. Like, they were really great about it. And I decided to delay my trip one day for time difference in order to make sure that I could call my family and explain to them that, like, it's safe. And I remember being like a little bit like more like nervous, and then just like it was totally normal. I was like so far away from it, and it's you know, such a random thing. But, you know, how many more clicks would I get if I was like, I was in Pakistan during this attack? You know,
oh my
like,
God,
you know,
you
but
wouldn't
it's
even
like,
be on this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Be on like CNN.
But you like that, like, what a boring, like, it was such an unimportant part of like the trip, you know? So like, I don't even know if I've like ever talked about like that before ever, because it's like it wasn't a big part of my experience. And I don't want people to, because that's what they're going to remember too.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they'll be like,
That's what I always say when people, you know, growing up here, living around mostly like white conservative people, I would, you know, be like doing waiter jobs as paying for my college and stuff like that. And I remember I would get questions every single day, which were like, oh, where are you from? You know, like, your English is so well. Aren't you glad you're not there anymore and stuff? And my experience of, you know, growing up in Pakistan, I've never, you know, I know that things occur, but in my experience, it was just like, all I saw was like, not deserts and whatever you see in Call of Duty and, you know, bombs or anything like that. Like, but it's interesting to, you know, hear what makes it on the news, because it kind of makes sense at the same time, where they're not going to show that like, oh, today was a good day in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Like, they would only highlight what's there. And if you don't get enough, you know, media coverage in the first place about things going on over there, that's not the way it's going to go. And I remember, like, I believe it was like 2 or 3 years ago, I was seeing that it was one of the #1 travel destinations in the world. And I was completely blown away. I was like, how is that possible? That people want to go there, and like, who are these people? I haven't heard of this at all.
But now people like adventure, and they're like they want to take advantage, I think, of that.
Well, it helps like when those travel vloggers go to a place like that and then people show it, because it is kind of like sometimes people find it corny, but it does help in a way as well, because then everyone's like, oh snap, like that's what it's like. I want to experience that, and it's totally different.
Like, oh, it's more like you can go, like you're not going to be in a bunker the whole time. You know?
I think I saw like a TEDx talk you were doing recently, and you were saying to try to eliminate people's fears of traveling, you were saying there's more friendly people out there than there are like bad people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think that it's like, for example, America is like scary to me because there's like all these guns. Like I'm afraid when I go to America, I'm like, there's a mass shooting like every day almost. Or like, what is it? Like in 2019, it was like 200 mass shootings. Like that's frightening to me. In the UAE, we don't have guns. It's like I said, it's the safest city in the world. And so to have lived here 10 years, like anywhere is scary to me a little bit. And I remember I was visiting an ex-girlfriend in Philadelphia, like downtown Philly, and we were like walking at night. And, you know, like as the boyfriend, I want to kind of be like protecting, but I'm like, you know,
you're like, protect me, fam.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm like, you live here? Like what? Like in Abu Dhabi, I'll go running anywhere at like 4 a.m. Like there's nothing that's gonna, you know, like God willing. But I think it's that's what I find funny is people will have on their TV every single day a mass shooting and then be like, oh, but you know, the Middle East, it's like really bad. And like
it's easier to put like a certain community or race of people as like a enemy than it is to have like, oh well, who did this mass shooting? If it happens to be like someone who's white, then it's kind of harder to pinpoint like what do we attack here, and then it becomes kind of about different subjects such as, you know, you have the whole gun control debate, and then you have things like mental health, and it sparks many other conversations, whereas it's a lot easier to just be like, oh, well, it was a black guy. Oh, well, it was, you know, a Muslim. So it's, again, I think it makes sense in that thinking, unfortunately. And until we recognize that, like, it's not going to change.
You know, it's not right, but it's consequential. Like there's a reason why it's like that, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Do you think everyone should travel to like eliminate that?
I think everybody should. I think travel is about like learning new things and having new experiences, and I think people should do that. I also just think maybe people should be like more educated. You know, it's really about you know that it's the same thing that I said before, like you know that you know nothing, right? Like, or you know the Pocahontas song where she's like Colors of the Wind, and is this too? How old are you guys? Is this maybe before your time?
Like 5 years younger than you.
Okay, so like, but you saw, you know, the movie Pocahontas.
Yeah.
It's actually problematic for other reasons now. People don't like it very much. But in the song "Color of the Wind," which is great, Vanessa Williams, like the Miss America who got it taken away because she had like one nude picture, which is another fuck up. But anyway, lots of problematic things with this. But there's a beautiful lyric where she says, "You learn the things you never knew, you never knew." And I think about that a lot because I think that is the most exciting when you're like, if you didn't even know that Djibouti was a country, and like now you know, like that's way more cool than learning a new fact about France, you know? And so I think we should make people, or we should encourage people to be curious. And when people are curious, then they will learn these things and they will be like more open-minded. And I do think that diversity helps that. Like you're going to, you'll know more about religions if you're around people from different religions, and about different countries if you're around different countries. And I think we're getting there mostly. I mean, but it's
hopefully TikTok is helping.
Right.
I swear.
The reason I got on TikTok is for work. I met with some of the executives from TikTok, and they said, we want it to be an educational platform because a lot of young kids are on it. They have like shorter attention spans. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a 1-minute video about every country. And that's what I've started to do. And so I'm
that
doing
is a great
the first
idea.
order that I went there. And I'm also putting some stuff of the cats, and I put like a thing about how amazing Mariah Carey music is, and like for Christmas and just in general. But then
Still
I was
being
like,
relatable.
well, I know it's like it's me. I'm like, today I wanted like my cats did something funny. I'm going to put that up. And I think what's exciting is to if content creation was my job, whether it was Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever, I would be way more focused on like very specific ways to do that. Yeah. And but because it's not my job, I get to do it kind of in a way that I like. And it means that I'm not as successful at it, and but that's fine because I get to do what I like. And so on TikTok, I'm doing these like 1-minute videos for every country. And I really like it because it's a quick way for somebody to learn about play. And there's
we got to put him on to Hatham.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up Hatham. I actually have a friend who like every video he does, he talks about every country's flag and describes why it's made like that. So it's really nice.
And then he's moved on to like explaining different cultural understandings between different countries and history. He's really into geography and stuff, but it reminds me of that, where like every video and then someone's like, oh, do my country, and it's like a beautiful sort of community.
Yet? Is he like
he has like 45,000 followers, so he's doing pretty well.
You should like feature me, do like
no, I'll definitely tell you.
Link it up. He's good stuff. I was gonna say, you mentioned some of your ex-girls, and so I had a question about that. Not about them, but do you ever fall in love or get in that sort of element when you're traveling and you meet a nice? You've been to a lot of places with a lot of pretty women, so
which is every country.
Yeah, I think I've never like had a vacation fling, I think, really. Or like,
I think you need to go back to all the countries all over again.
I think I mean, when I've been in a place a longer amount of time, for sure. What I don't want to be is that traveler who is like on the prowl or something. Like if something happens, that's great and fun.
Looks for a hookup in the city before they leave.
Well, it's not even that. It's like there's a romantic sort of idea that exists, that I travel to this place and then I meet this foreign girl and then I don't know, bring her home, or like I live there and change my lifestyle. I met her father and we milked goats together.
This is like FARAS's like Google search like history is like erotic stories of meeting a girl. And
well, when I go on chat roulette, sometimes people are like, don't come to my country. I'm just like, why? And they're like, because the girls here, they're gonna go with you. And then they're taking I'm just like, what? And they're like, that's what everybody does. Some people really like find that to be a thing. Like some people are offended by it. Like
it's a much easier question to answer is I've been to places where people are like, oh, foreigner, and they think that they fall in love with me.
But they fall in love with that visa.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and that is obviously, and that's like, you need to, I mean.
He said, I don't fall in love with girls. They fall in love with me.
I just think you have to, if you're only in a place for like a week, I don't think I would fall in love with somebody if I knew I wasn't going to be there very long. And I feel like it's like wrong to kind of do that. And that's like a kind of that's like the worst that's like a type of like non-consent, right? If someone thinks, oh, this means forever, and you're like, my flight's in 2 days, so
that makes it even more like, how you want more what you can't have.
Star-crossed lovers.
Have you guys watched Money Heist yet? There's like the show on Netflix.
No, but I've heard it's great.
Yeah. So they, the whole season is like in 2 days, like 48 hours technically, right? Like and there's all these love stories. And I'm like, these people, like that's not how it works. Like, of course, in a season, you have to put love stories in. But if you're pretending that all of this whole season takes place in 1 or 2 days, Like, and these people like are like, there's like literally in 48 hours they like get together. They have never met. They get together. They break up. They get back together. And I'm like, what? Like,
This reminds me of this one video. It was actually like on the news or something. It was so funny. This guy, he's sitting there with his like white American bride, and she like went to Pakistan to like marry him or whatever. And they're like interviewing her, and she's like, you know, I'm like so in love, and like she's like really into it. And then all of his friends are in the background, and they're like saying it or they're like Punjabi, like, yo, help me find a girl like this. And the guy's like slapping them. He's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. They all are in on it. And she's like, so like, even if she doesn't understand the language, she's so oblivious. And everybody's joking and making fun of it. Even the news guy, like the journalist, he's like asking her like all these like funny questions. But I was like, no, I felt so bad. But at the same time, it's just like,
I do
gotta know
like,
better than that. There's a whole show like that.
I wonder if it's like when you know, like attraction includes a lot of different aspects of identity. And so is it okay for part of that to be the visa? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you don't want someone to be, to like that. But then at the same time, you're kind of like, okay, well,
I mean,
only
even
like
here,
them.
like you would want somebody who is going to help provide a good life for you, like co-produce a good life together. So is it wrong to want to have a good life for your future generation?
I mean, I'm 100% a gold digger, so I'm looking for that, you know, myself. So
The
you know,
Cougars
I think
taught you well.
Yeah, but I think that it's I've had I've enjoyed my time traveling around the world, but I don't think I've like all of my like significant others, like all of my long-term relationships have been with like girls that I knew from usually from like school, or that actually all of them were from school.
But besides the girls though, how do you manage your relationships like with friends you come across and other people that you meet around the world? Does it ever become like a burden to catch up with them and make sure you don't just like visit them once, or you know, you had their time with them and then like ignore them? That's a lot of people you have to deal with, no?
That is a good, you know, when you become when you get good at becoming friends with strangers, you have a lot of friends, and you or at least a lot of acquaintances, and especially when it's like a really intense amount of time. So for example, those guys in Algeria, for a month I was with them 24/7. You know, at the time I basically felt like they were like my best friends, and I've stayed close with a couple of them. I visited them, but it's very different than when you're always together. And so you know, I try, and I think and also having moved around so much as well in my life, you know, what I say is I appreciate the time that I've had with each person. But like, if I'm not talking to somebody right now, it's not because we're mad at each other, just because so there are those people that have been my friends for years and years and years, and I always will talk to. But then there's also ones where you have a great time, and that's what it's for, you know, and it's okay. Like you can, you don't have to end a friendship in a fight. You can end you know, it can fizzle, and sometimes that's sad. Obviously, like I talked to a lot of my closest friends for decades, and I'm like, I just wish I wish we could all live here. And it's also weird when they don't know one another. You know, like I've always thought of like, if I get married, when I'm like the people I would invite to my wedding, like it'll be like weird.
It's gonna be like the United Nations meeting.
Even when I finished every country, we had a party in the final country in Malta. My parents came, and then I had a American Jewish guy fly in from New York. I had an Italian buddy fly in from Milan. I had a Lebanese friend fly in she was in Syria, and then she was in Saudi Arabia, and then a Syrian friend flying from the UAE. And it was like funny because they were all from you know, it was like this. Yeah, it was like they had never met each other, but then they all did become friends, and that was like even more fun, seeing my friends become friends with each other.
That's awesome. Also with that, like we talked about this a little bit before, but when it comes to like vlogging, capturing moments, and not sticking a camera in people's face, but trying to still remember, like build memories along the way. How do you balance like not being rude, but still, I think, you know, SHAH-AMEER and I, we can speak on this. We struggle with that, where it's like living in the moment, or, you know, making sure that something is captured and created as a content creator.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not very good at it, so I'm probably not the best to answer. I think it's about like I always want to over ask permission. I've traveled with other people who are better at or who are, more like followed and stuff, and they'll sometimes just like do it, and I don't always think that's appropriate or like ethical. But it's like a balance of like doing it. And then I think it's about respecting. I think maybe keep the camera on, and if somebody says that they don't like it, turn it off, and like just be okay with that. I remember when I was so in 2015 I had been to like 115 countries, and I thought I was only going to take 6 months off, and I decided not to have a phone or a computer and I didn't use social media at all, and I just wanted to like chill and kind of like I just wanted to learn about me, and sometimes I would go for a walk with my like nice camera to take photos, because I feel like I would see the world, like I'd be looking for beauty and I'd be looking for stuff. And then I'd be like, I'm going to leave my camera today and just go out and not think about having to like capture. And so I think it's about like segmenting the experiences and like differentiating between when you are like capturing stuff versus when you aren't, and being okay with that. It's also about like knowing what you want to capture and like what that story could be. Mine, as I said, I like it to be, and again, I'm not great at it, and like it's not super popular, but I like it to be as if someone was there on the trip with me. I don't do a lot of interviewing other people. It's usually like me talking, like, and obviously in the last year I haven't been able to travel at all, but I did a lot of like road trip videos, because that's what I like to do. In like 2019, I did a lot of like road trips. I would just like go rent a car and drive for like 14 hours like around the country every day for a week. And so a lot of my videos are like road trip through like Mozambique or like whatever, and then I would just be so yeah, I think it's about being respectful, and then just like making sure that you are enjoying it, like doing what you want.
Well, where do you take all of this knowledge? Do you feel a sense of responsibility to be like, oh, I have this privilege of being to all these places, so I can use my, knowledge in this way? Or are you like, you know what, I'm living my life and I'm traveling to all these places trying to experience something, and just I'm telling my story along the way? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think it's such a privilege to have been able to see so much of the world, and it would be a disservice to not share it with other people. And I think the best way to share it is just naturally, and not try to prescribe the lessons that I'm trying to learn, but just like offer it up. So I do, that's the reason that I do social media is more for like an educational thing, and like to like let people know what I've like learned and what I enjoy. But I also have like put it into my professional career, right? Like my favorite country in the world is the UAE, and I spend every day promoting it. And I love economic development, and I work doing investments for economic development impact. And so it's like I think it's about like integrating all of that together. And for example, November 17th, 2017 is when I finished every country. And the first anniversary and the second anniversary, I did like big videos and I reflected on it. And this year I was just like working really hard. I totally forgot. And like on the 21st or 22nd, I was like, oh shit, like I missed my like anniversary. And that was like, oh, like me, because when I finished every country, like that same day, my father said, this is going to be in your obituary. Like you will forever. And usually what's in your obituary is like your professional achievements and your family and stuff. And just to think that I was so young and already had something that will define me for the rest of my life. And for a very long time, it was like the amount of time that I said, hi, I'm Sal Lavallo, and I've been to every country is 1 million. And a lot of times that I felt like that was the only identity that I like had. And, and humans, we love value in ourselves. Like that's what identity means, right? It's how we value ourselves, how we value others, and how we like connect on that value. And so for a long time, I was like, well, the only value I have is I've been to every country. And like people, and
that's not a small thing.
No, but I mean, it was like, people would, I used to hate when people would I'd go to a party and people would be like, oh, this is Sal, he's been to every country. And I'd be like,
oh, that's a good one.
and it, and it used to be like the only thing though. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
also like funny, you know, and then he'd be like, no, you're not. And they and now though, like as I've like advanced more in my career, it's like it's exciting that people are like Salvatore's head of foreign direct investment at the investment office, and he's also like been to every country. And then you realize people are like talking to you about the other thing, and it's like, oh, like I'm something else. So like now I do a lot of events for my work. Like this year I think I've been on 75 panels and webinars for work, and in the bio that my work sends to them, it says my professional stuff, it says he's also one of the youngest people to have visited every country. So they say it usually at the beginning of these things. And it's interesting how it's like, because it's the business setting, that's like interesting, but like quickly forgotten because I'm there to talk about money and investing, you know? And I kind of like that now I have like another identity that adds on to it. I also like talking about like Islam, because to me, that's like that's like, if I had to identify myself, like what I give value to myself, you know, probably the first thing would be like my relationship with Allah, right? Like with the divine. And so sharing that is just as important as like sharing the travel in a way. And also, you know, like my love for Abu Dhabi and my job, like these are all things that I'd like to share. And so I think it's, but it is a good like line, you know, like when I don't mind when my friends.
It's an easy thing to like identify somebody by, like, oh yeah, but you're probably like there's a lot more experiences dug in that than
it's not just
the
like
line in itself.
It's not about just being easy. Of course, it's a great teaser, right? Like that saying that line is like that's all you need. But the way that I think a lot of people would see it is it's the same thing when somebody says like, oh, Oscar winner, Emmy award winner, you know, whatever. You're saying that this person has been recognized in this way, but what's the value and the knowledge that they carry with that? And I don't know anybody who has traveled the world, you know, even to a few countries, but let alone, you know, every country, that doesn't come with a bunch of knowledge and experience and value that could be like, you know, symbolized in that little teaser. And sometimes I think when you repeat things over and over again, then you forget you know, how great it is, but you know, that's no short thing at all. And it's incredible to be able to do that.
I think what's cool too is like one of the ways I've thought about is that if you put me in front of like Obama or like His Highness, like one of the rulers here, they would have a question for me because I've been to every country, and you know, like,
Facts.
and that makes it's like has given me some confidence as well to be like, I'm not, you know, like I can go anywhere and like have value to other people because I've done this thing that but at a younger age than anybody else maybe. Yeah. And that, you know, that very few people have done. And that's exciting. And then to combine it with the other things, like I think I hope that for everybody, like I get off a little bit every time in those webinars when they read my bio, because I'm like, you did good, you know?
Yeah.
And I think everybody else should, like, if your own biography doesn't get you off a little bit, then you're doing it wrong. You know, like you should be doing what excites you. And so you should like it. But I remember also once I used to hate when people would be like, what do you do? You know? And I'd be like, because what they're trying to say is, how do you make money? Like, how should I value you? How should I connect with you? And so I love dancing. And I used to say, when I was a consultant, I'd be like, oh, I dance. And I was on a plane once flying from the States to Abu Dhabi. And there's like this old woman sitting next to me, and she was like, what do you do? And I was like, I dance. And then we started talking about dancing, and we had like this great conversation. Then we started talking about other stuff, whatever. And then I was like, oh, I have to go to Saudi Arabia next week for work. And she's like, they even like dance there? And I was like, oh, like I'm like, my job is like, I'm a consultant. She's like, you said you dance. I'm like, I do. Like, yeah.
I didn't lie.
You know, like you didn't say, where do you work? But it's like when you, you know, you're trying to find connection with people, but you're also trying to like give value to them. And I think it's like, I like messing with that kind of stuff and being like, okay, like, I am like, you know, more than, or like, and when you think about it, when we ask these types of questions, we'll always be like, where are you from? And like, we're trying to like connect. And you know, it's like the same when like a kid is born, we're like, is it a boy or a girl? It's like, why does that matter so much? You know, like it's a newborn, you know, but it's like, gender is so important to us. So like, we'll like talk about it instantly. I do remember once I was in a taxi, or no, I was in a I was at the what's it called, at the security desk of a office building in New York, and I had to give my passport for the security, and the guy was like, "Wow, like you've been to so many countries. I wonder if you've been to mine." And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I didn't tell you which one it was." And I was like, "But I've been to, like, I was like, whatever it is, I've been there." And then he was like, "What?" And I was like, "It's this whole thing. Like, I've been there."
That's
And he was like,
fun.
and I love doing it in taxis. I'll be,
Well, what was it? Was he from Somalia, India, or Pakistan?
He's from Dominican Republic.
Uh,
But then in taxis, I always say it, like, they'll be like, I'll be like, "Where are you from?" And sometimes they'll be like, "West Africa." And I'm like, "But like, where?" And then they'll be like, "You don't want Sierra Leone." I'm like, "Oh, I love Freetown." And they'll be like, "What?" And I'll be like, and like, that's fun because it's
that's an automatic, like, you have a password to so many different things. That's how I was like, I was talking about this with a friend, but like culture and language is essentially a password, you know, being able to meet somebody where, you know, like, it's funny to think about, but sometimes like our parents, when they go into like a Dunkin' Donuts or something, and they recognize, you know, like we'll say like apne bande, which is like our people, then it's a little bit easier to let them know what you want, especially for people that, you know, don't speak as well, like English or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a comfortable place. So when you tell somebody that, like, "Oh, I've been to Sierra Leone and I love this," there's like this weight that's probably lifted off them, and that you get to actually connect on something deeper because they feel that maybe you understand something about them that not the everyday person, you know, has insight into.
And I feel like that I've learned when traveling, like, what are some of the ways to like instantly connect to people, you know, like, and it's either about the place or like religion or like, I think I'm one of the skills that I've gained from traveling all around is that ability to become friends with people really fast. And it's by being like, "Oh, like, how do we," and like, I did it to all of you guys, right? I asked specifically where you were each from, and you said Lahore. I'm like, "Oh, I used to live there." And then Niyati said Hyderabad, and I was like, "Oh, I went there once." You know, like, that's what I was doing, right? Was like giving connection, and like, not on purpose. Like, it's not like I'm like, but that's just like naturally what I do is I'm like, "Oh, like, where are you from?" And then I like connect with you, and then we're on that like equal playing field. And like, there, you know, like, I always joke that whenever I like am, you know, like traveling and like there's like a guy, I'll always be like, "Oh, like, you know, Ronaldo's way better than Messi." And like everywhere in the world, that's like a conversation you can have, you know, and there might be like nothing else. And then you can talk about girls, you know, and like, and also about like making your dad proud. Like, these are things that like, no matter where you are, like, you can connect, right? And
Like
like
finding
there's
the values of different sort of cultures in that way.
yeah, and like knowing what you can and can't say to like different people and what they will like think is, you know. And so then you ask like and it's about like being respectful, and you know, like but it's the way that you become, like, you turn a stranger into a friend is by realizing that you're 90% the same, and that the 90% that's the same is amazing, but the 10% different, that's what's really exciting. But you have to connect in order to find that difference, you know. And so finding those ways to connect really unlocks this like amazing world of, then you can say like, "All right, like, explain this to me." And you're, you know, but if you start with the difference, people are going to be like, you know, but if you start with the similarities, then it's easier to segue into, "Oh, can you," and if you do it in a like a curious like open way, like non-judgmental, you're going to learn a lot. And kind of on the flip side of this, I've gotten accused by some of my like more you know, like militant friends, or like my like militant liberal friends, of like going too far along in conversations with like people who have like extreme beliefs in different ways. And there's probably like very you know, Islamophobic and homophobic and racist people who think I agree with them, because I'll always like, if someone says to me like, "I hate Muslims," I'll probably be like, "Oh, like, why?" You know?
Yeah,
And they'll
for
be like,
sure.
"Oh, because of this and this." I'm like, that makes sense. Like, what, you know? And then like, I won't be like, "Oh no," because if you start fighting, you're not going to learn why they actually like their thought process. And so I've had like crazy conversations with people about like scary stuff. You know, like, and for like a horrible example, I was in like, not useful saying the country, but I was somewhere and I was like on a bicycle that had a back, like a thing on the back, and the guy was like, he said, so I was like, oh, do you have a wife or something? And basically he started telling me how his wife was 12 years old, and instead of being like, like inside, I was like, that's what, but I wanted to be like, is that like, well, are you, like you can learn about that in like interesting ways. And
Is that
you
the
can learn about,
norm? Like, what's the situation?
yeah, like, oh, like, yeah, is that normal? Like, does she live with you, or is she still with her family? Like, like what become, and you understand it in a totally new way. And then what you also realize is that people aren't monsters normally, right? Like it usually comes from something else, or is like culturally normal or whatever. And we talked at the beginning, like one of our amazing leaders of our time, Hillary Clinton, once said, it's not cultural, it's criminal. She was talking about like women's rights, and people were saying, it's like it's our culture that we like treat women this way. And she said, culture is not an excuse to commit crime, and I think that's like really important, is when you can say like, no, that's not okay. That's not like to say, oh, we've done this for 1,000 years. That's not okay. And when you realize, like, we have in our minds this idea that you have to like respect culture, which is great most of the time, but a lot of culture isn't great. Like a lot of stuff in every country in the world is not great, and it's and I feel like that's one of the, like, that I would tell like a younger version of me, is like in everything in life. The same with art. Like when I love art, and whenever I was able to say that I didn't like pieces in a museum, like I used to think that just because it was in a museum, I had to think it was great. And then when I realized that I could be like, I actually don't like that piece, that like blew my world view like 1,000 times bigger. And so when you're able to do that in a way that's like still respectful, and like learn about culture and learn about things that you don't like, but not hate because of it, then you end up like learning way more than you ever thought you could. And so I've had these like crazy conversations. I was somewhere else and they were telling me about like this guy, he wanted me to meet his like daughter, his baby daughter. He just had a daughter, and he said we had this great like couple hours hanging out with the baby and the mom and whatever, and we were walking away, and he said, yeah, we haven't decided if I'm going to circumcise her or not. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, and so I had learned a lot about this in my identity classes, right, and like in school, and so, but all the arguments that you would think would work, about like like pain and women's rights and all this stuff, like didn't really matter. Like the two things that that like kind of like got him thinking was I said, what do you want her to be when she grows up? And he's like, the president, maybe, like that. He was like, we were in like a poor slum in like a really poor country. He's like, but maybe she can be the president. It's like, okay, then you need to treat her like the president now. Like, and do you think that's something you would do? Like, do you think it's like, and then he was like, oh, and then I also was comparing it to like, to like male circumcision. And I was like, the foreskin is, really like, it's not entirely like necessary, but what you're trying to, what you're trying to do to her is equivalent to like cutting off your entire genitalia. And then I was like, would you do that to your son? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, then you need to, if you want her to be the president, you have to start treating them, and like, those seem like dumb arguments. Like if in school, well, I mean, I don't know exactly right what happened.
White savior. See, guys, it works.
No, but
I'm
like,
sorry. I totally take your whole point away every time I make one of these jokes. I apologize.
No, but it's like the white savior would go in and be like, this is like disrespectful, you're backward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be like, oh, we changed them by like giving them a pamphlet or something, or like kidnapping the daughter from the parents. Yeah. It's like, and I ended up like making like basically like a dick size joke to the guy, and that's what he was like, oh yeah, like that would be weird to do to like, like, and that's the argument. Like that's not what they teach you, but like it's because we had spent all this time together, we had become like friends, and then I was able to be like, oh, but like, and push their thinking like in a new way.
Essentially, what you're saying is like, even with the art sort of analogy that you made, you are allowed, I'll use that word, to not like a piece when you have context of all the pieces, or at least many of the pieces. If you go in thinking it's your first time in a museum and you look at one piece, then it's kind of unfair for you to make that judgment. Whereas, what you're saying is basically what you do is listen. And you listen from people who you might not agree with or that have opposing views because you know of other people's views. And you're aware that, different cultures work in different ways. I remember I told this story on the podcast, but I spoke to a white nationalist over one of these like chat roulette things for about 3 hours. And he only got to last a second with everyone else because he was basically trolling. He had a MAGA hat on and he was doing the Nazi salute. And I just asked him how his day was. And we ended up speaking for so long because he didn't want me to leave. And I just listened to him. And that was the only difference. I didn't do anything special, but it was that he finally got to get some things off his chest. I didn't judge him. I questioned his thinking, right? I proposed ideas, but what you're explaining is just basically like when you listen to people, they're given that respect. And for that dad, it sounds like he, heard you out because you listened to him and you gave him respect and attention rather than, coming for his neck and saying that he's backwards, like the typical sort of white savior, I guess, would.
And it's also not like altruistic, right? Like I learned a lot more about female genital mutilation from that conversation than I did from an entire semester course on it. Right. And you probably learn more about white nationalism by listening to this guy than you would from, any like news thing about it.
Yeah. I got invited to his forum. It's great.
And like your wedding is in 2 months, like with the hazmat suits or something. But like, I think that it's like they, and it's exciting. Always, people will tell me a lot. They'll be like, why did I tell you that? I'm the kind of person, because I'm so open and I really don't tend to judge, that people will tell me like intense secrets and all, and it's because I'll tell them the same thing. And that's like a really nice gift, I think, to have, thanks be to God, like that, I don't know why, but it's, people really feel free when they can say that to you. And I think when you're able to say your sins to your friends too, or when you're able to be open, it's it builds friendship much quicker. And it's also fascinating that there's also a lot of things that we are told not to talk about, that when we do, it's just this amazing thing, one of the examples, in not to be crude, I've talked to a lot of people around the world about sex, and it's such a personal thing that we all do. And we all
very
think about
taboo
a lot.
in many countries.
And and they never have talked about it before. But we all and then you realize that you can connect it because it's we
connect.
It's it's
I'm done. I'm sorry.
It's a fascinating thing, right? I think it's such an important part of identity that it's if you want to really get to know somebody, and so it's weird that we don't traditionally do that with your if you think about your best buddy, do you especially guys, to be masculine, you wouldn't say if you had an issue, right? You're going to call your buddy and be like, oh, I smashed. You're not going to call him and be like, I couldn't get it up, right? But we should be able to share both of those, or any of these things. And I think that that's when you are open and you are okay to have these conversations, you end up being oh, this is actually nice. And when doing that around the world, I think has been great. And also realizing I had this really important experience where I decided for I was 27, I wanted to dye the top of my hair as silver, gray or something. And and I kept the sides normal, but just the top. And I was oh, it's really cool. And it looked really cool. And I went to France, and and I was super fit at the the because I had been sponsored by 6 gyms and working out 20 hours a day.
6 gyms, jeez.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was one a cycling gym, a HIIT training place, a rowing gym, different types of gyms. But
Amber's heart is pumping right now.
and I went to France, and everybody was are you a footballer? Because I was super fit with a cool
they
haircut.
always have the hair, the faux hawk.
And they were, and I was no, I wish. And then I went to Algeria, which is just across the water, right? And they were it's kind of weird. They're are you gay? that's fine, but like
Yeah.
we just assume that like you would only do that if you were gay. And I was like, in France, everyone thought it was so cool. And then I was about to go to Libya, and my host there was like, you have to, like, he knew that I had to, and he's like, you have to shave your, like, it would be dangerous here. And those are all bordering countries, right? So to go, and I realized like everything you do, someone's going to think it's cool and someone's going to think it's not cool. So just do what you like want. And that was like such an important lesson where it was like, you know, people will be like, oh, like that's weird. But it's like, no, it's weird to you. You know, like there's somewhere else where it's like acceptable. And that also like builds a lot of confidence when you're just like, and then you can like do your own thing. And what's sad is a lot of people in like being themselves, they end up just like being like other people who are not like normal, you know, rather than like being what they actually want to be. Like you can be the most straight edge person and be living like your true self. Like to be you doesn't mean like you have to have like, you know, tattoos and tons of, or like whatever like the alternative is, right? Like to be conservative, you don't have to wear a MAGA hat, but people like to you know, like have something that shows it. And so I think it's like you can learn to express yourself in the ways you want to and just like feel like you're cool to yourself. You don't have to worry about what others think.
Yeah, that's dope. I do want to wrap this up, but I have like some last like rapid fire questions. Amber and Shami, feel free to throw any before we go. What's the best food that you've had?
Probably like Italian. Like,
No.
The best
Out of
like,
everything,
dish,
I mean,
place you
no
went.
offense. No offense.
The best
I've been
dish?
very critical of Italian, but
I'm Italian. The best dish. I do have a YouTube video which is like my 8 best meals. I'm trying to remember what I said at the end. I don't
what's
know.
everywhere in the
Italian
world
mouth?
and like Italian.
Yeah, like pasta.
My like grandma's pasta sauce,
All right,
Well, that's kind of cute.
right?
it is.
See?
It is.
Got
And
Amber on my
we're
side.
being extremely rude too.
Okay, and what's the not
right,
worst,
what's the
but the
second-
strangest? What's the strangest?
I've
food?
eaten a bat and a rat.
Oh, Frost loves rats.
No.
That's Frost's favorite animal.
What was tastier?
The rat. The rat was really, really good.
Ew.
It was good. Oh, Frost, we gotta try it now. Where'd you go to have this rat?
Yeah.
in Equatorial Guinea, and everybody,
Let's go.
I had seen it for sale, and then I asked people what's the best food, and everybody was like, rat is honestly amazing. I was like, you're messing with me. And then I had it, I was like, this is phenomenal.
Really? What did it taste like?
Like rabbit in a way, kind of, but like really tender.
Okay.
Don't say you have a rabbit.
In Peru, they eat guinea pigs. Apparently.
I've had fried guinea pig in Peru.
Oh, is it
Oh
good?
my god.
Fine.
Why are we
Okay.
eating rodents?
Because
Why not?
I have a lot of Peruvian friends, and I'll like make jokes like, "Yo, did you have guinea pig today?" And they'll be like, "Nah, man." But like, I always make fun of them for eating that.
I mean, what's funny that I've always found, like the same with the bat and also with the rat, is like they would only like I had the bat in Palau, and they would only have bat. They would only eat bat if they like couldn't catch any fish that day. You know what I mean? And so, but people will be like, "Oh, it's like this thing, like a cultural thing that they do." It's like not really. You know,
Yeah.
like it, like it's.
I've
know,
even
so
What
heard,
did
like, in
you
some of
eat
those
of the
countries-
bat? Like a bat
all
has
of it,
no meat.
even the wing.
Uh,
And like, but the waitress had to cut it for me because I didn't know how to do it. And then I was like, "Do you eat the wing?" And she was like, "Only the Japanese men do." And I was like, "Are you daring me?" And then I was like, give me like, y'all, like, give me the wing." So then I
Oh my
like,
god. Okay,
Have
I don't
you
want to go
eaten
any
snake?
further on this
Sorry,
one.
have
Stop
you eaten
it.
snake?
Stop. That I
Have you
think
eaten
we've heard
snake?
enough. He
I've
went
had
from
snake.
Italian to bats and rats. Okay.
So after eating bats and rats, you really chose Italian? Okay, but it's just
you guys are
grandma's.
really bad at rapid fire questions.
So
It's been-
sorry.
I know.
So
I know. Well, you
sorry.
just
but
threw-
you have
okay.
interesting answers.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Okay, most expensive place you've been.
maybe like the Maldives, or like the most money I've spent in a place. Probably, yeah. Or like I did a really expensive trip once to Moscow. Like I just decided to go all out.
Like, is it expensive there, or you spent a lot of money there?
I spent a lot there.
Yeah,
But I
well,
think like the Maldives, in some African countries, it's very difficult. Like Angola has very expensive hotels and very expensive transportation and stuff.
Yeah. Cheapest.
yeah.
Cheapest, maybe like Bangladesh.
Oh.
Favorite architecture.
Probably Abu Dhabi. I mean, I love like we have the world's most leaning building. I think the Sheikh Zayed Mosque is the most beautiful building outside of like Mecca. I think that we have like the circular building. We have the world's tallest building in Dubai. Like, so I like the like new stuff here.
How about least favorite architecture?
I guess like the Horn of Africa has like, you know, not great, kind of just like low lying, no colors, no nothing.
Prettiest people.
I think it's. I really.
It's a rapid fire.
To your preference.
rapid
It's
fire.
not like anything else. And I won't ask the opposing side.
What's the opposing side mean?
What would be
the
least?
ugliest.
Unless you want to. Hey.
I don't. No, I think. God, that's hard. I don't know. Like I like brunettes. Like I like racially ambiguous. Like I love anybody like mixed. Like where I'm like, where are you from? Like, you know, like
Latinos.
Like
they're like the most ambiguous.
Yeah,
I feel
like Adriana Lima. Like, you know, Nicole Scherzinger, the lead singer of the Pussycat Doll. Like that look, to me, I'm just like what are, you know? Like if they had like Faras's hair, but like a better body.
Better body? Whoa.
He's a guy. I don't.
Damn,
I would
bro.
prefer a different.
What's wrong with my body? Just because I don't have a footballer body like you. Just because I'm not signed to 6 gyms, okay? We're not all...
He doesn't want that though.
A female body shape. But like, I was trying to compliment your hair is very, you know.
Listen. I'm a baddie, okay?
Oh my god.
Kind
of thick, actually.
That's what he's trying to say. That's what he's trying to tell you is that he thinks you're a baddie.
For us, is thick.
All right. That's enough, guys. That's enough. Amber, did you have any ones?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
You guys are horrible. This was supposed to be like.
I know. That's why we have a whole podcast.
You didn't even give me any. I was thinking like these. I'm doing a podcast with these like young kids. They're gonna ask me some like, you know, like risky questions. It's been like the easiest.
Okay, hold on. Risky questions.
Oh God, Amber's thinking now. She's thinking of savageness. No, we
It's
just
okay.
we love the
it
deeper
alone.
conversations. You gave us so much good stuff, and those could have been rapid. But
also, our podcast never goes this long, but you were so interesting. We're like, we have to keep going.
Yeah.
Auntie's sitting there being like, how am I going to edit this? Like,
No, she doesn't edit it. It's okay. Okay. So where can people find you? And what's something that either whether you're working on something or something you're looking forward to that, you know, they can also keep up with.
I do really like this like new TikTok thing that I've been doing the last month. I think it's like fun, and I'm going to continue doing it. And I like the way that it engages. I do a lot less lately on Instagram and YouTube, but I have a lot of content on both of those, especially YouTube. So, you know, really anywhere. I do respond to every message on Instagram. So always happy to, you know, answer any questions. And
I know. I was so happy because of that. He's verified, but he was like, yo, let's do it.
I think it's like, I just remember like sending messages and not getting responses. And so I think it's, and usually it might just be an emoji, but like I see it. And if I see it, I acknowledge I've seen it. I usually don't ask questions back. Like I don't have 100 conversations a day, but I will I'll be like, and if, you know, I think that's
really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so, okay, we'll link your TikTok below, Instagram, YouTube, everything like that. So this is Strange Flavors. We ask our guests a very important question at the end of every podcast, and I'm curious to see what you'll say. But Amber, if you want to take that away.
Okay. If you could describe yourself as any flavor, what would it be and why?
If this man says marinara or something.
Pesto sauce.
I want to be like you know, these like white Pringle cans they're doing where it's like, you got to guess the flavor.
Oh, they have that?
I never knew.
Yeah. And like saying they have like the white Starburst, you know, like
the mystery flavor.
I feel like, cause it's like, I can be anything. Like call me tomorrow and I'll be like, you know, super halal. Like call me another day and I'll be like, you know, horrible. Like send your mom on a trip with me and you'll never.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that's what I would say is I'm like, you know, I can, yeah.
What's the flavor? It's a mystery, what, Pringles can?
Measurements.
That's what I heard.
I've also been described like or compared to Pringles cans in other ways, so that also
Okay.
makes sense. But
Oh my God! Wait.
and no one's gonna make it to this. There'll be like 5 people. So
Oh, hold on.
Wow. It took me a second.
just no. Yeah, just like mystery flavor. Like you never know what you're gonna get.
Fair.
That's
He's got the mystery shirt on too, just basic white. Not going to.
So does Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know Shamir. Shamir's very
Mine's slightly
vocal
blue,
about
but-
his flavors and his being. But
What flavor are each of you? Do you know?
oh man, the guest always asks this, and we
Yeah.
have to do this in super quick. Okay,
We could do it after the podcast.
we'll do it after the
Yeah.
podcast because they've heard it enough times. We'll tell you how it works. Hey, Salvatore Lavallo, did I say that right?
Salvatore.
Salvatore Lavallo. Thank you so much.
Salvatore.
What?
Salvatore.
Salvatore? Oh, okay. Salvatore Lavallo. Hey, thank you so much for being here. Like, honestly, this was a lot of fun. I can't believe it went this long, but like, we really appreciate you taking the time out and
Yep.
sharing all your experiences. And I know that like all of our audience will really appreciate and love this as well. So hopefully you have 3 or 5 more members to add to your UN collection of friends. And we stay in touch.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. You have a perfect halal haram ratio, I think.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's great. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Strange Flavors. It's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little less stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.